check this out. This is really exciting. I bought myself a new knife, and this new knife has this beautiful little blade inside here. It has a little bit of like a screwdriver so I can move like some plates and stuff. It has a bottle opener, and it has a little carabiner so that I can just literally put it on my pants and then I can go wherever. And how does that connect to today? It doesn't, but it's a really cool little fact, and I thought you would like this. What's going on, you guys? Benza here. Thank you so much for coming back and checking out another video. Today I wanted to talk about focal lengths. Everyone has their favorite focal lengths, a lens that they really like to shoot at, and it's awesome. It's great. You finally get the feel of it. Maybe it has been your style for the longest time, but not a lot of people try to get out of that little zone that they have. These are my two favorite lenses. One is a Sigma 35 1.4 art lens, and the other one is my trusty 80-200 Magic Drain Pipe Canon 2.8 all the way through. And these lenses are absolutely phenomenal at what they do. I actually need to make a separate video on the 80-200 because it's, I think, a ridiculously good lens, but it's ridiculously underrated because it is old. Back to the topic though. Focal lengths. Why is it important? Well, if you have been shooting with a lens set that is a standard kit lens, which is an 18-55 or a 24-105, you've been experiencing a range of focal lengths that you can use. But focal lengths actually alter the image in a ridiculously cool looking way. Some people choose to shoot with primes because they are faster lens, meaning that their aperture can open up a lot wider, causing it to have a lot more bokeh. But what not a lot of people talk about is lens compression. Lens compression is basically the phenomenon of the background separating from the foreground and the elements being distorted, meaning that the background actually turns out to be a lot bigger than it actually is. But what does that do to your image? Well, what it does, like I said, it separates your foreground from the background. So if I shoot myself and there's the wall behind me, if I shoot this with the 16mm lens that I use currently, everything is kind of the same sort of size. But if I was to shoot this with the 80-200 at 200mm, and I would frame myself with a wireless microphone to be the exact same as I am right now, then this wall and everything else would be much larger. But how can that help you in photography? If you have a subject, if you are shooting portraits or you're shooting some products, then a lot of it comes down to separating that someone or that something from the background so that your eyes and your brain can focus on them or it. But how can you achieve that with different lenses? Well, let's jump into it. Day one of this vlog test. My dad and I are out in Lake Louise in like freaking freezing cold to get video footage of some lens and why you should carry multiple lenses with you. And also, there's my mom up there. You can barely see her, but she's there. She's like traveling through the snow, not giving a single Alright, this is cool. Check this out. So, this is Lake Louise, frozen lake, and people are just kind of like skating on it. There's that cool little thing that I got the shot earlier of the bobcat. It's neat. Winter's cold as heck, but it's neat. Alright, it's time to get my drone out so that we can take a look at all these different focal lengths and actually do what we came out here to do, which is compare focal lengths. All right. My beautiful model. All right, mission accomplished. Finally, going back to the warmth. Edit these pictures. Let's take a look at the difference. Here I have a couple of shots that I took out in Lake Louise with my drone and my backpack. I started with the 16mm lens, and as you can see, the Mavic Mini on my backpack is perfectly in the middle, and you see the Lake Louise scenery, although you do see the trees being a little bit distorted. That is because there's not a lot of lens compression on this bad boy. But if we look at immediately the 35mm right beside it, even though I angled it a little bit differently, you can see that the trees start to become much larger in the image, which is due to the fact that it's more compressed in the background. Then if you keep on moving on to the 50mm, you start to see that the mountain is a lot bigger, but you also start noticing that the background is a lot more blurred out than it was before. And that is what light compression also does. It makes things blow up in the background, but what it also does, it blurs it. So all of these images were shot at 2.8 aperture. It was the exact same every single time. And this picture, start to notice that there is a little bit of blurriness that's happening. If you keep on moving on to the 17mm, you start to see that the blur starts to become a lot more evident and the background starts to become a lot more compressed. As we move on to the 140, that's double. Now you start to see that even though it's the same angle as the 70, you don't necessarily see the mountain anymore. You see actually the ground kind of over top of the Mavic Mini. And if you move into the 200mm, then you see that there is basically no background at this point. It's all just whiteness, and you see the Mavic Pro just kind of chilling on my backpack. So what is an ideal focal length? Well, it kind of depends on what you want. If you want that really in your face, I am in this scene feel, then you definitely want to go with the 16mm because it makes everything super, super wide and it literally puts you in that scene. But if you want something that's a lot more separated, it's a lot more dramatic, then you definitely want to go and punch in that focal length, maybe around like 50, 70, and even above. There's focal lengths like 85mm, which is absolutely amazing for portraits, as well as the 50mm. We actually had a discussion with Dan, who I shoot weddings with, the other kind of like whole part of Focus Wave Co. And we discussed focal lengths and the importance of focal lengths. I'll drop a link of this podcast in the description below so you can check it out, you can listen to it, and maybe you can learn from it. Getting back to the question is, what focal lengths should I use? Well, like I said, it depends on what you want. If you want that dramatic, separated look, definitely punch into at least 85 to maybe 200. If you want an in-your-face feel, as in like you are in this scene, go as wide as you possibly can. Now, the one other neat thing that you might not notice necessarily is that the more you go and punch in with that focal length, the more you actually start blurring things. So if you have a kit lens, a 24 to 105 or an 18 to 55, if you place your subject right in the center, then you start to notice that the background starts blurring a little bit more, even though your aperture might not be as open as it was on the wider end. Standard kit lens often have a variable aperture, and as you zoom in, it actually gets darker, that aperture gets a little bit smaller, and because of that, you start noticing more things in the background. But the more you focus in, the more you start separating things due to the lens compression. I hope that little banter was helpful for you guys. I certainly enjoy going out to the mountains and essentially film a little bit of Lake Louise and take some fresh air into my nostrils. It was an awesome little trip. If you don't mind hitting the like and the subscribe button, it helps out this channel. It helps me bring out more content for you guys, as well as let me know what is it that you're interested in terms of photography, lens, videography, and what do you want to know about the 80 to 200, the magic dream pipe. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you in the next one.